Adrian N. Breitfelder, City Clerk, you are hereby directed to call a regular session of the City Council to be held on Wednesday, January 3rd, 2024, at 6:30 p.m. in the historic Federal Building for the purpose of conducting such business that may properly come before the City Council.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome to a regular session of the Dubuque City Council for January 3rd, 2024. As a reminder to our participants, you can provide in-person input or virtual audio and written input during the sections of the agenda where public input is accepted. Input options during the live meeting include in-person attendees may approach the podium when the mayor asks if there is any public input on the item they would like to speak to. Remote attendees can log in to GoToMeeting using the login links, phone numbers, and access code that appear on the broadcast and live stream and posted on the front page of the meeting agenda. This option includes audio input and written chat input. If you are participating via computer, indicate which item you would like to speak to in the chat function, or note that you would like to speak during the appropriate section. If you are participating via phone, indicate which item you would like to speak to during the appropriate section. All comments, whether in person or virtual, must be accompanied by a name and address. Additionally, written public input is accepted by contacting the City Council directly from the city's webpage at www.cityofdubuque.org/councilcontacts and through the City Clerk's office email at ctyclerk@cityofdubuque.org. This information will be reiterated during the meeting. Attendance for the session is as follows. Mayor Kavanaugh.
Here.
Council members Farber.
Here.
Jones.
Here.
Resnick.
Here.
Roussel.
Here.
Sprank.
Here.
Wethel.
Here.
City Manager Van Milligan.
Here.
And City Attorney Brumwell.
Here.
Thank you, Mayor Kavanaugh. I will turn it over to you for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Adrian. I invite all who are able to please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next, we have our swearing in of council members-elect and Mayor Pro Tem, and we will start with Council Member-elect David Resnick.
Great, thank you.
I, David Resnick, do solemnly swear
I, David Resnick, do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and that I will faithfully and impartially, to the best of my ability,
and I will faithfully and impartially, to the best of my ability,
discharge all the duties of the office of City Council Member as now or hereafter required by law.
discharge all the duties of the office of City Council Member as now or hereafter required by law.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Come back.
Next is Council Member-elect Laura Roussel.
I, Laura Roussel, do solemnly swear
I, Laura Roussel, do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and that I will faithfully and impartially, to the best of my ability,
and that I will faithfully and impartially, to the best of my ability,
discharge all the duties of the office of City Council Member as now or hereafter required by law.
discharge all the duties of the office of City Council as now or hereafter required by law.
Congratulations.
Next is Council Member-elect Katie Wethel.
I, Katie Wethel, do solemnly swear
I, Katie Wethel, do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of Iowa,
and that I will faithfully and impartially, to the best of my ability,
and that I will faithfully and impartially, to the best of my ability,
discharge all the duties of the office of City Council Member as now or hereafter required by law.
discharge all the duties of the office of City Council Member as now or hereafter required by law.
Congratulations.
And finally, we have Mayor Pro Tem Rick Jones.
You're waiting. Okay, here we go. I, Rick Jones, do solemnly swear
I, Rick Jones, do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and that I will faithfully and impartially, to the best of my ability,
and that I will faithfully and impartially, to the best of my ability,
discharge all the duties of the office of Mayor Pro Tem as now or hereafter required by law.
discharge all the duties and responsibilities of Mayor Pro Tem as now and hereafter required by law.
Congratulations.
We will move on to proclamations. We have Human Slavery and Human Trafficking Prevention Month.
All right, and I believe we have Mary Lou Irons here to accept this proclamation this evening, maybe with more of a team.
We do everything together.
Yes.
We're better together.
Well, if you'd like to say a few words before I read the proclamation, feel free.
No, you first.
Before,
Mayor
okay,
Kavanaugh.
perfect. City of Dubuque proclamation. Whereas by presidential proclamation, each January has been designated National Human Slavery and Human Trafficking Prevention Month. In addition, January 11th has been designated National Human Trafficking Awareness Day. And whereas the issues of sex trafficking and labor trafficking are a violation of human rights, the hope of this proclamation is to raise awareness of this topic. And whereas the City of Dubuque wishes to acknowledge the following organization for its work to combat human trafficking: Tri-State Coalition Against Human Trafficking. And whereas the United Nations Global Plan of Action has 3 pillars upon which it stands: protect, prevent, prosecute. We invite all residents of Dubuque to educate themselves on this issue and to support these 3 pillars to help eradicate the problem. And whereas human trafficking is a national, state, and local issue, we invite all civic leaders and residents to support the efforts of the Tri-State Coalition to train city bus drivers in recognizing the signs of trafficking and to participate in Iowa Secretary of State Paul Pate's Iowa Business Against Trafficking initiative. And whereas we commend the Tri-State Coalition Against Human Trafficking for their campaign consisting of radio, public service announcements, and continued use of a city bus wrap. Now therefore, I, Brad M. Kavanaugh, Mayor of the City of Dubuque, Iowa, on behalf of the City Council staff and residents of Dubuque, do hereby proclaim the month of January 2024 as Human Slavery and Human Trafficking Prevention Month. So feel free.
Thank you. So on behalf of the Tri-State Group Against Modern-Day Slavery and Human Trafficking, I want to thank you, Mayor Kavanaugh, and City Council members for promoting this national proclamation and supporting our tri-state efforts to end human trafficking. Your support of our efforts to educate fellow residents and to advocate for survivors is appreciated. And you energize us to continue our partnerships and to create more collaboration among businesses, local groups, and school districts. Lastly, I want to thank part of the group that is here with me this evening because they are dynamic, all of them. They are a great group to work with. So if any one of you want to join us, talk to me. We would love to have you. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Thank you. That's right. you did that.
We will move on to consent items. At this time, anyone participating in the meeting in person who would like to discuss one of the consent items, please approach the podium when the mayor asks if there is any in-person input and state your name and address. For all remote attendees, please enter your name and address in the chat function or state your name and address over the phone when the mayor asks if there is any virtual input. If more than one participant would like to speak, then city staff will determine the speaking order of the participants. Please state the item you would like removed from the consent agenda for separate discussion and consideration, and consent items can be found on pages 2 through 3 of the agenda.
Thank you, Adrian. Do we have anyone here in chambers who would like to remove any of the consent items for separate discussion this evening? Seeing no one here, do we have anyone virtually?
We do not.
Thank you.
No input.
All right, thank you. Back to the table then.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Resnick.
I move to receive and file the documents, adopt the resolutions, and deal with the consent items as recommended.
Second by Farber.
Motion by Resnick and a second by Farber. Adrian, would you call the roll, please?
Jones.
Aye.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Farber.
Aye.
Wethel.
Aye.
Roussel.
Aye.
Sprank.
Aye.
Resnick.
Motion passes 7-0.
We will move on to items set for public hearing, and we have one, proceedings to set public hearing on the issuance of not to exceed $3,200,000 state revolving fund sewer revenue loan for January 16th, 2024.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Roussel.
I move to receive and file, adopt the resolution, and set the public hearing for the date specified.
Second by Wethel.
Motion by Roussel and a second by Wethel. Adrian, would you call the roll, please?
Jones.
Aye.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Farber.
Aye.
Wethel.
Aye.
Roussel.
Aye.
Sprank.
Aye.
Resnick.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
We will move on to boards and commissions. We have applicant review for the Building Code Advisory and Appeals Board, the Equity and Human Rights Commission, and the Housing Appeals and Mediation Board.
All right, thank you, Adrian. First up tonight is the Building Code Advisory and Appeals Board. It appears we have 4 3-year terms, all running through January 1st, 2027. And some of these, you'll notice, are some specific terms for specific professionals. So applicants are Adam Brown, Philip Heim, Tom Townsend, and Corey Velasky. Is there anyone here in chambers or to speak to any of these applications? How about anyone virtually?
Adam Brown is on the line.
All right. Mr. Brown, you can go ahead.
Good evening. I just wanted to introduce myself. I've worked as an electrician in Dubuque for 15 years. I hold a master's license in Iowa and Wisconsin. Currently, I'm working as a project manager and estimator for Westfall and Company. And thank you for your consideration of me as the electrical professional or professional alternate on this board.
All right. Thank you very much, Adam, for your comments. We have anyone else virtually?
We do not.
All right. Anything else from the city clerk's
No
office?
input.
All right. Then we can move on to the Equity and Human Rights Commission. We have 1 3-year term through January 1st, 2027. I do want to turn this over to Adrian for just a moment because I want to explain a little bit about the fact that we actually have more openings than this, but there's only one here, and I know you have some background on that for us.
Yeah. So this commission is one of the commissions that's subject to the state of Iowa gender balance laws, which basically requires that commissions be gender balanced. And so for this commission, there are 9 total terms on the commission. And the current makeup of the commission is 4 males and 2 females. And then the remainder are openings. So based on the current makeup of the commission, we're only presenting 1 term to the city council at this time based on the applicants received that would help try to achieve that gender balance. State of Iowa law indicates that a commission is able to not have a gender balance or be gender imbalanced if a good faith effort is made to achieve gender balance. And that is interpreted as holding applicants for a period of 3 months before they are then considered for appointment. So that is our intention for the other 2 openings on the commission if we do not receive any non-male identifying applications within the next 3-month period.
Great. Thank you, Adrian. Any questions about any of that before we move on? All right. Then we have 3 applicants for this position, Rick Baumhover, David Heyer, and Teresa Sampson Brown. Do we have anyone here in chambers to address us on any of these? Seeing no one here, anyone virtually?
We do not.
Okay. And was there anything else from the city clerk's office
No.
for these applications? Okay. Then I will move on to the Housing Appeals and Mediation Board. Here we have 4 3-year terms through January 1st, 2027. And we have 4 applicants, Mary Gotts, Wendy Hopp, Luke Hoffman, and Lynn Sutton. Do we have anyone here in chambers to address us on any of these applications?
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Lynn Sutton. I'm here about my reappointment for the Housing Appeal Board of Mediation. Can't believe it's been 3 years already. Time flies when you're busy and doing things. It has been an interesting 3 years, just the different cases that come before us and how we're able to look at the material and listen to the things that our people said and really come to a compromise or to help improve things. So therefore, I'd like to remain on the board to continue that and to move it a little further. I thank you all for your consideration and your time. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Lynn, for being here to address us tonight. All right, anyone virtually?
No, there's not.
Okay. City Clerk's
No input.
office. Thank you very much. Okay, then that is the end of the boards and commissions applications.
We will move on to public input. At this time, anyone participating in the meeting may address the City Council on the action items on the agenda or on matters under the control of the City Council. For all in-person attendees, please approach the podium and state your name and address when the mayor asks if there is any in-person input. For all remote attendees, please enter your name and address in the chat function or state your name and address over the phone when the mayor asks if there is any virtual input. If more than one participant would like to speak, then city staff will determine the speaking order of the participants. Individual remarks are limited to 5 minutes, and the overall public input period is limited to 30 minutes. Under the Iowa Open Meetings Law, the City Council can take no formal action on comments given during public input or that do not relate to the action items on the agenda.
Thank you, Adrian. Do we have any public input this evening? I see no one here in chambers. Do we have anyone virtually?
No.
Okay.
And no input received.
Yes.
Oh, we do have
Yes.
some. Okay. If you could please state your name and address for the record, and then go ahead with your comments.
My name is Catherine Sorensen. I live at 2613 Jackson.
Thank you, Catherine. Go ahead.
I'm coming here tonight about the whole issue going on with GRTD. Some of you may be aware of it. Some of you may not be enlightened by it. And there's a lot of rumors going out there. So I'm looking at requesting at some point in the near future, we need to look at ordinances to protect renters. So what GRTD did the week of Thanksgiving was they sent out 12 notices to renters of homes. These are strictly people who are renting homes, not people in 2 flats or 3 flats or apartment buildings. And said, the homeowner is wishes to sell the property. You have to be out by January 1st. No one has a lease. They just did this again the week before Christmas and told all those people they have to be out by February 1st. I have been assisting a couple people, and when we first found out about it, I wasn't sure what was going on. And then I heard from another landlord that, they have a balloon payment due. So I'm known for my specialty is research. This is what lights me up. It's like, I got to figure out what's going on because this is making no sense. A major property management company who has tons of property in Dubuque, what's happening here? So that's what I went and did. And it's true. One of their funds they transferred property they're selling has over 55 properties in it. Another one of their funds that that has recently been transferred has another 28 properties in it. That's a total of 83 properties right now that I know for a fact are going to go on the market. 5 of them are currently on the market. The total cost that they're going to try to receive is close to $5.8 million from these 83 properties, which averages out to about $71,000 a property, which means that guess what? Their properties, they're selling these properties for much more. You have people I know 5 people who have already moved out of Dubuque. We have limited housing here. We all know the rental costs are through the roof again. And these people have homes. We're not talking an apartment. We're talking a house. And you've been told you have 30 days. And now you have to come up with a security deposit. You have to come up with first month rent. If you're lucky enough to find a place, you have to have rental moving costs. People are putting stuff in storage. Some of the storage locker facilities are full. Some of them have raised their prices. Wonder why. And then there's this little law in Iowa I found that basically says if you do not have a lease, the notice must be given 30 days before rent is due. Rent is due on the first day of the month. The tenancy can only be ended on the first day of the month. Now that's interesting because they sent out the notices the week of Thanksgiving, advising them of January 1st. And oh yeah, you don't have to pay December rent, but you're only giving these people a week's notice and they have to be out in 30 days. I do understand we may have to take this to the state level, but if they get away with this, which they're going to because there's nothing we can do about it, what happens when the next landlord does this? What happens when the two wards, which is downtown and North End, people aren't going to be buying gas because they don't live here. People aren't going to be shopping. They don't live here. They're not eating out. They don't live here. I know someone who's going to be driving an hour and a half one way every day, 3 hours on the road to have a job. Children are moving back home. That's fun. More importantly, there are parents moving in with a child. So I don't know how we can change these ordinances. I don't know what we can do to help protect a tenant when something like this happens. But the next few months are going to change the dynamics of Dubuque, and it's going to change the rental status, and you're going to have a ton of property for sale, homes for sale with high interest rates. They have sold some of their two flats. I know that because someone's waiting to see if the new landlord's going to keep them. They don't know. It could be a lot worse than what I know. I mean, I just started my research and then unfortunately, I came down with COVID, so I've been in recovery and I haven't been looking that much or researching that much. But it's something that I really would like the board to figure out what are the dynamics to this and what can we do. The city can't help these people. I understand that there's too many of them. Resources are limited. I understand that. But GRTD knew 5 years ago that there was a balloon payment that was going to be due November 30th. They knew that. They gave nobody heads up. They could have told people back in August and September, hey, by the way, these 83 properties are clearing them about $1 million a year. So was it the money? Is that why they couldn't? This is a moral issue. This is making Dubuque look, I don't know. People are angry. People are upset. I'm more hurt at the fact that they actually treated people this way and that there's nothing anybody can do about it. This is just morally wrong, and it's not what I've been told Dubuque stands for. I'm not, I moved here almost 5 years ago. So, I mean, yeah, it's nuts. It's crazy. I just wanted to bring it to the city council. Maybe the attorney can look at it, but this little Iowa law might mean we're going to have to head at the state level. I'm willing to fight whatever battle is necessary because if GRTD is obviously going to get away with it, what happens when the next landlord tries to do it, or the next property owner with multiple properties in town does it? How do we prevent this from happening again? We're not going to change what's going to happen over the next 6 months. There's going to be a lot more people being forced to move in 30 days with nowhere to go. in the middle of winter. Thank you. Good night.
All right, thank you, Catherine, for your comments. Do we have anyone else virtually?
We do not.
Okay. Nothing
No
else from the
input.
city clerk's office, okay. All right, we can move on then to action items, please, Adrian.
Action item number 1 is 3000 Jackson Dubuque Brewing and Malting Project update.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Sprank.
I motion that we receive and file and hear what the presentation is on it.
Second?
Got a motion by Sprank and a second by Resnick. Coming to you, Mike, or going straight?
Belmont.
All right, we'll go straight to Mike Belmont, please.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council. Mike Belmont, Assistant Director, Housing and Community Development. As you may recall, at our last time we met, we had received some preliminary bracing drawings from Steve Emerson, from his engineer, and we had, at that time, we had asked for some additional information, giving us some reasonable level of assurance that the proposed solution would provide a level of public safety. Since that time, we have not received those plans, and we have repeated attempts to contact Mr. Emerson and the engineer. We hadn't received anything. However, later this afternoon, we did receive an email from Mr. Emerson indicating that he would like to move forward with demolition of the 3,000 portion of Jackson. That's the southmost building of the two buildings that are on the site. Because this request came in late in the day, we have not had time to fully evaluate the application and process it through HPG. So at this point, that's all I have to update.
Okay. All right, thanks, Mike. I'm going to start with a question or two here, and I appreciate the fact that we have very little information to go on right now, aside from the fact that we've seen a change and a shift in focus from bracing to demolition of this portion. Is this the portion we're most concerned about and that we've been most concerned about? This
Yes.
area? Okay, so the area that Mr. Emerson is proposing to demolish is the area that is of concern?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, all right. And so this, if we were to move forward in this direction, would continue to resolve the issues that we have been facing in terms of the safety issues and as well as the blockage of the roads and things like that?
Demolition of the portion that is proposed to be demolished, which is the entire, all along 30th Street up to there's an archway that separates the two buildings. So it would be from that archway south, the entire 30th Street block. So those are all of the areas that were identified as potential areas of concern by WHKS. So yes, that would address all of the outstanding issues that we have.
Got it. Okay. And then in your mind, since this just happened today, I mean, what are you thinking is next steps over the next few days?
So the next steps are to verify that we have because this is an historic preservation district, we need to make sure that we have the authority to issue the permit for demolition, which I believe we do. The ordinance reads, because it's a public safety concern, I believe that we have that authority, but we want to verify that and make sure that we're following the proper process.
Okay. And reaching back out to Mr. Emerson, I'm guessing over the next, like by tomorrow and the next couple of days to figure this out. Yeah, okay.
Yes.
All right, open it up for questions then. Mr. Resnick.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. So if the demolition process continues on the same vein, it's probably safe to open up the street. It doesn't have to be entirely done and cleaned up and ready, but there'll be a point where you might say, well, we can open up the street now, 2/3 of it is down, and anything left over will not spill into the street. Will you keep us abreast of that situation just for the neighborhood? So if that continues, the demolition prospect, and they start, you'll let us know as soon as it's ready to open up the street.
Of course,
Yeah.
yes. One thing to consider is during the demolition, they will have a construction zone. There'll be a crane on site, and so that area will still have to be blocked off while the demolition is occurring. But once they get it down to a point where it would be safe to reopen the streets, we would certainly move quickly to make that happen. Yes.
Great, thank you. And I appreciate that answer. The other thing is, I know it's early, as the mayor said, but so what's a potential timeline? What is the fastest timeline, and then what could get in the way of that?
I think the fastest timeline would be, Mr. Emerson indicated he would be ready to start construction within 2 weeks. I think if we can move quickly internally, which I believe we can, we should be able to allow that to happen in the 2 weeks, provided everything is provided that we meet all the requirements.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I would
Yeah,
just
go
like
ahead,
to
Mike.
add something about the 2 weeks. So what he says, within 2 weeks, he could start asbestos abatement. So that's short of demolition.
Right. That's part of the process. Yeah, that's a good point to make a clarification on. The demolition process is, we send an application out, and we have to get sign-offs from utilities, from asbestos abatement, it's a fairly complex process, but that process could begin, that initial process could begin within 2 weeks.
Anything else, Mr. Resnick?
Oh, no, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, Mr. Sprang, go ahead.
Legal question. Do we have a copy of his insurance on file? Because if this thing goes sideways in the demo, I could just see this going way, I know he's got to deconstruct it. It's going to take time. But if all of a sudden the wall gives and the whole thing just flops down,
right,
I want to make sure that we as a city are not liable for this.
As part of our standard demolition process, we do require insurance.
Okay.
So whether we have that on file now, I'm not sure, but we would certainly have that before we would issue the permit for demolition.
All right, thank you.
Ms. Wethel, go ahead.
Can I just ask, is there anything that as a council we can do to expedite the process at this point?
I believe Mr. Emerson is likely to propose some things that the council will have to consider. I mean, I can't speak for him. Sounds like he's not available to speak tonight, but I think you'll have to evaluate that as information comes in.
On your process end, is there anything as a council that we can do to move forward quicker or more efficiently to assist you in that process?
Again, I haven't had much time to process, but at this point, I don't believe so. It's part of our standard process, so I think we can evaluate it and move it forward quickly.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead, Mike.
So in the correspondence that Mr. Emerson sent today, he said, I would like to propose that the city invest $500,000 into the demolition of this building and tie it only to the demolition. We intend to apply for grants to try and move forward with the redevelopment of the 3040 building and hope to be able to present an incentive request to the city for that project that can be tied to the development of that project specifically. So I invited him to come to the council meeting tonight when I received this email this afternoon and said, well, you're welcome to make that proposal to the city council. And he's not here, he's not on virtually, so he's not making that proposal apparently. And I'll be candid with you, if you referred it back to me, I wouldn't recommend that we provide him the money to tear the building down, but that's not for my final decision, it would be for yours if he makes the proposal, which apparently he didn't show up to make. So that trying to be responsive to your question.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mike, for that extra, that added information. I guess my position on this would be, and until we have some sort of a proposal to consider, I don't see any point in considering it. I don't think that having a discussion about something that is hypothetical is all that helpful, even though we have an email that says that, you know, he might want to propose something like that. But I guess that'll be something we have to wait and see, I guess, to Ms. Wethel's point, if there's something that we need to discuss a little further. But I appreciate that you feel like we're where we need to be as a council to expedite this as fast as we possibly can, so.
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
I would add that we don't have a formal demolition application yet either. All I have is the email and a conversation with a contractor that called this morning, and I've given him the information to apply for the intent to demo, which is the first step in the demolition process. We had, by the end of the day today, we had not received that. So we don't formally have a demolition request at this point either.
Got it. Thank you, Mike.
Well,
Go ahead, Mr. Jones, yeah, and then Mr. Resnick, you go back.
Just want to bring back a piece of history that's getting to be pretty old, but And Mr. Emerson may or may not be aware of this, but prior to him purchasing the building, there was an offer to purchase by an individual who was going to cover his costs of demolition by selling the bricks. And the city council at that time didn't want that to happen. They created the conservation district for the area to prevent that. And here we are today, probably 20 years later. Seems to me that I wasn't on yet when they did that. I was close to my first election, which was 18 years ago now. But Mr. Emerson may or may not know that that seemed to be fiscally viable for that potential buyer that may or may not even be out there anymore. He may not be in as big a financial hole as he thinks he is with demolition. So just want to make sure that somebody says that so it doesn't go uninvestigated on his behalf, not ours.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Mr. Resnick.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just hoping that you would ask for another quick update 2 weeks from now, and that was all I was going to ask for. Thank you.
Yes, I agree. I think we definitely need it. I mean, I don't feel like we're really in a very different place right now. We've an 11th hour email to be able to suggest maybe a different path, but I don't feel like much has changed as of this conversation. I appreciate that we're looking at some other options, and I continue to appreciate the work that you're doing, Mike, and all your staff. And Alexis, I see you out there too. Thank you for everything that you're doing. I do think that we as a city are pushing and doing as much as we can to try and resolve this problem. So I guess we continue to ask for the patience of our residents who live in that area, who need to get down to that area, the businesses that are there. I do hope that we can seriously consider a faster resolution than what we have been talking about. And if it does mean demolition, I think we've all basically stated here that while that is an unfortunate outcome of this situation, it is a very potential outcome. And at this point, I'm looking forward to this moving more quickly over the next couple of weeks, hopefully, and that's entirely up to Mr. Emerson, I understand that. But yes, as Mr. Resnick said, we would like this back on the next agenda until we can resolve this. I hate to keep talking about the same thing, but it needs to get resolved, and I think we all recognize that. So I appreciate the efforts on it. Anything else to add before we move on? Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Mike, for your time. Okay. Well, in that case, we have a motion here to receive and file and have a presentation discuss that. Mr. Sprank, second by Resnick. Adrian, would you call the roll, please?
Jones.
Aye.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Farber.
Aye.
Wethel.
Aye.
Roussel.
Aye.
Sprank.
Aye.
Resnick.
Motion passes 7-0.
Action item number 2 is city council appointments to boards and committees.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Roussel.
I move to receive and file and discuss among the council.
Second by Farber.
A motion by Roussel and a second by Farber. So it is that wonderful time every couple of years when we all decide what boards and commissions we're going to be on. Adrian, do you have anything you'd want to add to this process? And you kind of help set this up and tee it up?
Yeah, I'll just say, just for context, as the mayor mentioned, since it's the first regular meeting of the calendar year, the city council is just asked to review all of their current appointments to the various boards and committees that they serve on to see if they are interested in making any changes for the upcoming year. If any changes are made, we would just ask for that to be included in an amended motion. And if there are any changes, the city clerk's office will notify all of the appropriate boards and committee staff of those changes.
Great. Thank you, Adrian. Okay, so we've all had a chance to review, hopefully, and take a look. And obviously, we all know which boards we serve on and committees we serve on here. So any discussion from it? Ms. Farber.
Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. I, over the last 2 years, have had the pleasure of serving on the Greater Dubuque Development Corporation Board. And at this point, I would like to share the accountability and the service to this group. It's been 2 years for me, and I'd like to see if someone else would like to share the service.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Farber.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, Mr. Sprank.
I'd be willing to pick up that board and unload one of my other boards. So I would be willing to step aside from the Convention and Visitors Bureau and travel to be the advisory board.
Okay, all right. All right, so we got Mr. Sprank. Yeah, Ms. Wethel.
I would like to offer to represent us on the Convention and Visitors Bureau Travel Dubuque Advisory Board in place of Mr. Sprank.
Okay. Okay, any others? Yeah, Ms. Roussel.
Adrian, I wondered if you might update us on the little bit of changes there on the Travel Dubuque Advisory Board? I had some questions on that.
Yeah, so in confirming with Travel Dubuque, they had mentioned that the Convention and Visitors Bureau Advisory Board is now going to be referred to as their outreach committee. So the term of the board is going to change in terms of its name. And so the city clerk's office will update our records accordingly for that. They'd also mentioned that they plan to meet quarterly. Their first meeting is tentatively going to be in March, but they have not solidified a date yet. They'll notify my office once that's confirmed, and I will relay that information to the appointed board members.
Go ahead, Ms.
Thank you.
Adrian, it looked like that board previously met the fourth Thursday of February, May, August, and November. Do you know if they plan to continue on that date and time?
I'm not sure. Travel Dubuque only mentioned quarterly and sometime in March, but I don't think they've solidified a frequency in terms of when they meet.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So at this point, we have Ms. Farber moving off the GDDC board, Mr. Sprank moving onto the GDDC board, Mr. Sprank moving off what is now going to be referred to as the Travel Dubuque Outreach Committee, and Ms. Wethel moving onto the Travel Dubuque Outreach Committee. Any other changes or discussion about any of that? Okay. You mentioned a motion, Adrian. How specific do we want to be in that motion or need to be?
I don't know if
what I just said was
if you
recorded,
wanna help me confirm
so I
that,
just want to point that
do
out.
you want to specify?
I think what you just said will work. If somebody would like to make a motion to adopt that.
Mr. Mayor.
language.
Yes, Mr. Jones.
We make the appointments as discussed at the council table.
Second by Farber.
We got a motion by Mr. Jones and a second by Farber. Just a quick point of order here, Adrian and Krena. Since we have a prior motion for the suggested disposition to receive and filed, what do we need to do technically to make sure this goes into effect?
Easiest thing is probably an amendment. So if there's consensus that would be an amendment to the original motion.
Maybe I'll withdraw my motion and let the original motion maker.
I will amend my original motion to include the updates as discussed.
And I will second.
All right, so we have the original motioner and seconder being able to do that. Okay, so we all clear on everything we need to be, Krena? And everybody's clear on the changes that we've made? Okay, all right. Well, with that then, I would ask Adrian to please take the roll.
Jones?
Aye.
Kavanaugh?
Aye.
Farber?
Aye.
Wethel?
Aye.
Roussel?
Aye.
Sprank?
Aye.
Resnick?
7-0.
Action item number 3 is city lease of property from Dubuque Child Care Collaborative LLC.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Jones.
I move to receive and file the documents and adopt the resolution.
Second.
Motion by Jones and a second by Resnick. Mike, please.
Thank you. City Manager Mike Van Milligan, Senior Counsel Barry Lindahl, Chief Information Officer Chris Coleman, and Strategic Initiative Consultant Dave Lyons are recommending City Council approve the lease between the City of Dubuque and Dubuque Child Care Collaborative LLC for Unit 4 at 7900 Chavanel Road. Unit 4 will be occupied by the city's Information Technology Department, Traffic Department, and be a shared data center. The lease is for a term of 5 years. The city has the option to purchase Unit 4 at the end of the term. The rent for Unit 4 is $6,020.83 per month. The purchase price under the option will be $1,000. The city will pay for any required improvements to Unit 4. The lease also provides for the city's payment of a portion of the maintenance, insurance, and taxes for Unit 4, approximately $3.10 per square foot per year. In late 2022, city staff began communicating with Dubuque Initiatives, a local 501c3 nonprofit community organization that was considering the purchase of 7900 Chavanel Road for a multi-employer child care center. Dubuque Initiatives faced a positive challenge in that this building, the former Medline Industries call center, while being made available at a highly discounted price to Dubuque Initiatives, also contained significantly more space than the multi-employer child care center would need. The Dubuque Initiatives Board had determined to look for partners to fill the space that would be consistent with the Dubuque Initiatives mission of improving local development and quality of life, and that would not conflict with the operation of an adjacent child care center. The city has been considering relocation of the Information Technology Department and Data Center as part of an overall space study. Presently, 13 full-time equivalent employees are located on the second floor of the City Hall Annex, occupying approximately 2,100 square feet of office, break rooms, storage, restrooms, and training room space with no room for expansion. Built in 1880, the two-story building remains in fair to poor condition with water leaks due to roofing issues. The interior layout has been modified slightly, but still has numerous challenges with office layouts due to the building's previous usage, load-bearing walls, and usable floor space. City information technology and engineering traffic servers, storage, and telecommunications have been placed at locations across the city, many of which are not optimal for physical, operational, or security purposes. Over the past 6 months, in addition to working with Dubuque Initiatives and Straka Johnson and Associates architectural firm, Chris Coleman has been collaborating with vendors Converge One, Dell EMC, Data Power Group, and Communications Engineering on a final design and budget for this move. The scope of work includes design construction plans for offices, shared workspaces, a Tier 3 data center, and all systems to support each of these areas. In 2022, Dubuque Child Care Collaborative, DCC, a wholly owned subsidiary of Dubuque Initiatives, purchased the former Medline property in Dubuque Industrial Center West. DCC has established a 68,320 square foot building as a multi-unit condominium project to be known as the Learning Campus Condominiums. The community-wide Child Care Center is anticipated to open in January 2024, and the Dubuque Community School District Preschool Center is anticipated to open in late August 2024. If approved, the city would anticipate being operational on site for the data center yet this fiscal year, and the City Information Services Office is relocated shortly thereafter. There is no anticipated date for the county presence as of yet. The data center construction is proposed in 2 phases. Phase 1 data center provides a complete turnkey data center for use by the City of Dubuque tenants. The system is designed for a day one load of 100 kW and future expansion to 175 kW of electrical load for 5.18 kW per cabinet or data rack. The current generator at 7900 Chavanel Road will be utilized. The data center water fire suppression system will be replaced with a gas fire suppression system. The proposed UPS system that switches from building to generator power is modular and can be expanded in the future. The mechanical system will be designed for 70 kW redundancy on day one, with revisions to build out to 175 kW. 18 cabinets or data racks will be fully built out. Phase 2 data center. Phase 2 data center expands the data center to 30 cabinets or data racks with additional electrical capacity, redundant UPS, a second generator, and additional cooling units. In Phase 2, the city would offer the capacity for co-location services to non-city users. The total capital cost for the office remodel and completion of Phase 1 and Phase 2 of the data center construction are $2,032,309. As I said, implementation is proposed in 2 phases with funding requested as follows. The Phase 1 capital cost will be the $1,346,373, and the source of funding will be ARPA broadband funding, a Dubuque Industrial Center West tax increment financing funding, and a capital improvement program for the data center that already is in the city's capital budget. There is no funding requested in this memo for data center Phase 2, which is anticipated to be $685,936. This amount will be requested as a fiscal year 25 capital project to be considered. I concur with the recommendation and respectfully request Mayor and City Council approval, and Chris Coleman and Dave Lyons have a presentation to make.
Good Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Chris Coleman. I'm the Chief Information Officer for the City of Dubuque, and I think our presentation is very aptly titled as an opportunity for collaboration. We've got a lot of different partners that are in the building at 7900 Chavanel, and I think Dave and I are going to talk a little bit about how we got to here and what some of the benefits are for the city to locate both our offices and our data center there.
Mayor, Manager, Council, it's good to see you. Dave Lyons. I am an innovation consultant with Greater Dubuque Development, but also this evening with Dubuque Initiatives, which is a 501c3 nonprofit community development corporation located at 900 Jackson. So we have always talked about how Dubuque punches above its weight. And it does it by making 2 + 2 = more than 4, making every asset count. So, spacebar, got it. So Dubuque Initiatives, as you know, nonprofit, livable, viable, equitable community support. Greater Dubuque Development, nonprofit, public-private organization that promotes growth. Guess what? In spring of 2021, Dubuque Initiatives updated its strategic plan and looking at the focus on what it's going to take to move Dubuque forward. They began to focus on childcare, and specifically 3 things: increase the number of childcare slots available in the community, convene state and national expertise to complement the work of local service providers, and to serve as a liaison between Dubuque's childcare organizations and area businesses to address the long-term issues of operational costs. Dubuque Initiatives made that known to Greater Dubuque Development. Greater Dubuque Development shared its concerns that it had received from industry. As you know, Greater Dubuque Development does over 300 CEO interviews every year. Workforce is #1 issue. Childcare is one of the top 3 issues in workforce. Greater Dubuque Development conducted a study of employers and child care providers. It showed the gaps we had and that what needed to be built in the community, both in terms of human infrastructure and physical infrastructure, and that we needed to increase both availability of child care generally and support for the child care industry and workforce as well. So 2 entities talk, it turns into a Dubuque-style public-private collaboration. The building, Greater Dubuque Development, undertook the effort for Dubuque Initiatives to find the right building, and it did. The previous Medline Center, now the Learning Condominiums, assessed at $5.9 million, sold to Dubuque Initiatives at $2.5 million. And one of the things that Dubuque Initiatives does is it operates as a nonprofit. So whatever its costs in the building are is what it passes on to you in a lease purchase cost. So you're getting the benefit of Medline as well as their generosity as well as Dubuque Initiatives. Vision, the Dubuque Initiatives Board of Directors established this as a place for nonprofit community-oriented activities that would be in line with child care capacity, which we want to grow there. Funding, Dubuque Initiatives, as you know, invested $2.2 million, but sought and received matching grant from the state of Iowa for this facility. And so then we needed partners because we had more building than we needed, but it was in a great place, it was in great shape, and it was looking for great opportunities. And I'd like to say, one of the first ones we remembered was, I think there's a data center issue that the city has. Chris?
I think you've heard me say more than once that a data center located in the basement of an old funeral home is probably not the best place. It might be obscure and physically unknown, but it's not the best place for having a data center that supports a lot of mission-critical data that's depended upon with the city of Dubuque, and that's increasing, not decreasing. So we had a couple of synergies that came together. In addition to the building, since I think it's been about 2015, we've been really looking at how can we create a very robust production, which is where we host our day-to-day environment for technology, a disaster recovery site that's a true disaster recovery site. So the production site goes away, we can switch over seamlessly to that disaster recovery site, as well as conversations with our traffic center that is working on not only the 1,000-plus cameras that we have in the city, but we have several hundred surveillance cameras, places like on the Riverwalk and within buildings like City Hall. And some of the programs that they're looking to host for the traffic data on the streets program, which would actually use real-time streets data to do some of that artificial intelligence analyzing of traffic patterns and that type of thing. So all of those needs came together for needing a secure, high-performance, supported, and resilient data center. And the model that I have in front on the screen really shows how this is structured, and it also aligned very well with replacement cycles that we had in the budget for servers and for storage. And so working with EMC and our partners there at Converge One, we were able to make a design that actually created that particular environment that I just talked about. It was able to reduce our servers down from, 8, we're in a highly virtualized environment, which means we have servers that rather than having hundreds of servers, we have hosts that have up to 40 different servers that are on that particular host server, as well as the storage of around 50 terabytes that goes with that. So this particular model talks about Medline, or the 7900 Chavanel, being the production data center that we're proposing for the move tonight. We have a real data center located at the Dubuque Law Enforcement Center, so those two sites would mirror completely, as well as taking the traffic data center equipment that's located at a couple different places throughout the city, racking it there, as well as the surveillance camera servers. And then also, in addition to that replication between those two sites, creating what we call an air-gapped copy or a backup in the cloud, which means that's our protection against any types of ransomware or any malicious data that might compromise what we've got. So we've got a very robust solution that happened within the existing replacement cycle, as well as took advantage of the building that we had here. So we truly are right time, right place, right solution for what our business needs are.
So that seemed like a great partner because we had a large telecommunication room out there could be set aside. So we started talking about some others, and as you've probably seen, there are now 5. The Dubuque Community Y opens the Child Care Center Monday on time. The County of Dubuque has recently voted through the supervisors to move the 911 center. That may take a while, but we'll be patient. Dubuque Community Schools actually has a contract and will begin working in January on the 10 preschool rooms that will be co-located with the Child Care Center. And we can't think of a better partner to have than the City of Dubuque. We like the fact that you will make the place even safer. Everything that protects data, guess what? Backup power. This will be a child care center that'll never go dark. So, as you can see, we're located in the West Industrial Park, and it's well situated for travel at the intersection of Chavanel and Seiple. As you get closer, you can see it's a beautiful location. It has a lot of green space around it. It has a walking trail, Berglund Pond, and lots of outside area that previously has been parking, but now will be parking and child care center related activities. Lower right would be an outdoor Nature Explorer certified outdoor play area for the center. And to the top would be also a playground for the preschool. So you'll see as it's laid out on the right side is the child care center. To the top is the preschool center. To the left side or the west side would be the city. And to the rear, in the back with its own parking and secluded entry, it would be the 911 center. Give you a little bit better view of that. The area in yellow all the way to the side, light yellow, is the Child Care Center Phase 1. In the lighter yellow is Child Care Center Phase 2. We anticipate we would need more space. We might as well build it, right? Well, outfit it the way it needs to be outfitted so we can expand when we need to expand. Then in orange is the preschool center. Cool thing, kids can move back and forth. So if I'm dropping my child off and they're in childcare and it's time for preschool, they go across the hall. Just as cool. If I'm the teacher in the preschool room and I don't want to go find another part-time job, when preschool's done, I go with the kid over to the child care center to finish my day at work. And when the child care center is needing summer help for school-age children, these classroom assistants will now be able to stay on site. So then we started talking about the collaborations going a little bit further into the technical area. And guess what? This is where Chris steps in and says, I'll take it from here. This is Unit 4.
Thanks, Dave. As Dave said, Unit 4 comprises our offices, which there are, I believe, 5 offices there, and then a cubicle arrangement for the remainder of staff. The shared data center that we'll talk a little bit more about. There also is a data support area where could be used by the city for doing what we call our workbench, which would be where we do setup of PCs. We could do any of those kinds of things that you need to deploy, as well as there's some shared areas too for us to collaborate with other technical needs that we have in the building, as well as for using it for potential renters that might come to the data center for co-location purposes. So data center phase 1 is probably one of the things that you'll see happening first. A couple things that we're very much looking to do, in the diagram on the upper right shows the dual entry for telecommunications. A lot of things that make a data center successfully are that duality. One piece fails, the other one picks up. So we would look at leveraging some of our fiber with IMON coming in on the I guess it would be that eastern corner, and then exiting on the west corner and connecting to the Emergency Operations Center for Wisconsin Independent Networks, and also an exit and creating some entry into those looping systems that you've heard Dave Ness talk about in terms of the fiber design for the city of Dubuque. Secure entry and exits. One of the things that we need for both data center and offices is if you don't need to be in there, you're not there. So when we have the current office environment, as much as we try to lock down, we don't have access control, we don't have that ability to monitor and alert, so this would provide that. Day 1 are 18 data racks that are serving our needs. This is what phase 1 really is all about, is what does the city need and to get going and to get up on that, on that model that I showed you previously. The cooling happens on each rack row that we've got, so that's also a modular system that we're designing. We're utilizing the existing generator, and again, installing a lot of things, and you'll hear the term modular, so that when we do move to phase 2, it's kind of a plug and play. It's not so much we're gonna have to reconstruct the whole thing. Using a CO2 fire suppression system, which basically sucks all of the air out, versus putting water on it, because water and computers and electronics do not mix well. So that's what we would look like. We talked about the redundant communication paths, and again, it's a scalable environment and a design so that as we add more partners or as we add more technology, it will be relatively easy to add that particular pieces to the puzzle. Then, and just going back, April is when we're expecting to have that move happening for the data center. July would be about when we're expecting for the IT office move. That's not set in stone, but that's kind of what we're looking at. This would move all of our offices to the new area. The traffic workspace is ready. Traffic is not moving from third floor, but they are relocating resources as well as creating additional workbench space at this location. One of the attractive things, too, about when we first looked at this facility, and we had looked at a few others, was there were a lot of things we could leverage that were already there. So the existing desks, workstations, cubicle structure, and most of the offices we're able to reuse with a few, minimal amount of construction that we're going to have to do in that area. The electrical's in good shape for the offices, and the low voltage network wiring is because it was set up for a call center that had a lot of the similar needs that we have. So although we've got to do some work to the place, it had great bones for what you're always looking for, as well as allowed for us to reach those goals that we wanted to. So again, leveraging that ability to be redundant as well as have high availability for the applications that we have that require it. Future phase 2, which would fully build us out, I say we're kind of a tier 2.5 on day 1. That's not a thing, but we're almost there, and that really just means the amount of redundancies that we would have. So we expand to 30 cabinets or 30 data racks. We allow for that additional electrical capacity that would serve those additional racks. We add redundant UPS, which are the thing that takes care of your power until you switch to generator. And again, those are modular, adds a second generator, so if the first should fail or to load balance, the additional cooling units that go with the data racks, as well as offering that co-location service to non-city users. And I think we talked about targeting who are our public partners that may want to co-locate in there that don't have that opportunity right now to get a very cost-effective but also very secure center. So the capital cost, as we explained, this is how they break down and how the sources of funding break down. The phase 1 is a little over 1.3 million. The entire project is a little over 2 million. So phase 1 again is our IT and traffic workspaces and offices, and phase 1 of the data center, leveraging existing ARPA broadband funding that we had looked at for projects, the Industrial Center West TIF, and existing data center CIP. This is just a breakdown of those lease costs and kind of how our square footage breakdown. We'd look at starting the lease coming up in January and ending in 28 with those expenses will be reflected in the operating budgets of both IT and in the engineering departments, and with that option to purchase at the end of the 5 years. And then this is that utility and maintenance costs that are just part of doing business in a condo. You know, you need the parking lot scooped and all of those kinds of things that just maintain a building in good working order. So what does this mean for Dubuque? Technology doesn't often have a direct impact on residents. However, when we consider the amount of technology that we have that just sort of, it's a good thing that people don't know about it because that means it works. It's quietly running in the background for everything from mobile computing that's happening in police cars to the amount of inspections that we're doing or any of the kind of ERP things that we have. So there's a lot of technology, a lot of need for data, and this is definitely fitting this need. So the photos that I thought were appropriate to illustrate that physical safety and security. First one on the upper left that's our building. I joke that we have more suicidal squirrels in our neighborhood than any place else, but that's definitely a thing. That power, it's in a neighborhood. It's not designed for the kinds of things that we're doing. Second is the radar of the derecho. I think we saw the impact of some of those things that happened in Cedar Rapids and in that area, and that the need for redundancy. Lower left is Raycom's building when they were hit by a tornado a few years ago, and they kept working in that environment with holes in the building, but it does show you that there's a need for that physical redundancy, and they had that. And the last is a small data center in Wisconsin that had water fire suppression versus the gas, and so that's what it looks like. It's not, it's destroyed. So again, providing for that safety, that security, the ability to have the redundancy of both data and our telecommunications, and creating that resilient and very highly available environment for our technology, and again, for the data.
And the last thing I'd note is for operational purposes, there will be a condo association group. The city of Dubuque will have a vote on that condo association group. The costs that you saw for maintenance and snow shoveling, et cetera, those have been set for a year and will be handled by DI, but from there on, then the association can make those decisions. The Association for the Governmental Entities also has what is called a supermajority issue. So any major changes to the building require a supermajority of the users of the building. So I think that gives the level of stability that I think the city would need to see to put assets there. And I can answer any questions about the lease or the building or Dubuque initiatives, but the IT stuff will go over here.
Excellent. Well, thank you both for the presentation. Very much appreciated.
Mr.
Yeah,
Mayor,
Ms.
of
Farber.
course, I'm going to start with the IT stuff. And I want to thank you very much for the presentation, and I'm just very impressed with the robust, secure, scalable solution, the state-of-art technology that's really being built into this facility, and how fortunate we were that they had the bones in order to get the racks and the conduit and everything in place for us. So thank you very much for that wonderful detailed explanation, and I think it's really important for the residents of Dubuque to know how secure going forward that we will have all of those different silos in terms of the production side, in terms of the traffic side, redundancy, and safety of all of the records and the personal information for every resident here in Dubuque. And I'm an advocate of redundancy and safety, so thank you very much for working on that for the last couple of years. You also should know that near and dear to my heart, of course, is web hosting and co-location, which is my background. And I wanted to just ask a question about the phase 2 for those co-location services, and in parallel to the cost and our expenses on an ongoing basis for the condo. Is there some projection, and I know this is a March question versus a today question, but have you thought about how we can raise revenues by that co-location revenue once you have that phase 2 expansion where you have more racks for people to share, that they can actually put their facilities and their equipment in that facility, and we would manage it for them and make it easier for them so that these individual small companies don't have to physically create their own data center. And that's the benefit, if you will, the cost benefit for small corporations that don't have to provide their own data center and their own facility and all the things that go with the mechanicals around that. And so I think it's important to have an appreciation of what potentially that revenue stream could be and potentially what those clientele IT departments might look like.
Sure.
Thank you.
We have done some very, very high level projections on a cost-benefit analysis. First, would it make sense that we do it in the first place? And it does. I think we have enough public partners, actually, that have approached us from time to time. Think colleges, universities, school district is there, those types of things. So I can't speak for any of those right now, but that is a possibility. We have co-location agreements as part of the public-private partnerships for broadband already. And we do lease rack space at 3rd Street and probably one other location. But so we plugged into those models that range, depending on the number of racks, it's a scaled model of $800 for 1 to 2, $600 for 2 to 4, and anything more than 4 racks is at $400. So I kind of use that range from $400 to $800. at about 500, if we're fully built out, at about $500 a rack, we break even on the lease payments. Somewhere between 6 and 7 per rack would give us the a build out fastest. Yeah. So I think it's going to be a matter of finding out who our clients are and what our audience would be, working with those public partners first, and then reaching out into the community. So that we can kind of get a feel for what does that co-location space look like, and it would meet that tier 3 requirement, which is really the minimum requirement for most businesses that would want to locate and be considered eligible for the different types of insurance that you need for your data center. So, and it has an ability to be caged, so that securely locks off in different places too. Okay. So it's a work in progress.
Right, and what I appreciate is the fact that there are tiers for those customers, potential customers out there, so that the level of service can vary, which I think is important, so that we don't overkill or underkill depending upon what needs are. And hopefully then we could help them grow step by step within the data center as well. Just one more question for you is to please let us know in March about your budget and what it is that we can do for you to move this forward, because I think it's a real important step, and I think it is going to be something that for the community and for Dubuque would be something to showcase for how the municipality is actually stepping up with this state-of-art facility. Mm-hmm. So thank you very much.
And one other item, this is a continuation of the collaboration. We're already, from Greater Dubuque Development and Dubuque Initiatives, reaching out to all of our broadband partners. Mm-hmm. The best situation is if, when we get to March and Chris and her team can show the exact layout of the facility, mm-hmm. we can take that ahead of time to the private sector, get some estimated costs, and actually get that revenue built into your budget when you get to July. So our goal is to make sure that if there's private sector interest and how to analyze that interest when you're making your next set of decisions.
Thank you, because that's great data that we would need. Appreciate it.
Yep. Well, I will tell you that you presently are leasing space underneath the 3rd Street water tower to 4 different companies. So if you can lease space under the water tower, I'm pretty sure we can lease space out at Chavanel.
Mr. Mayor.
Mm-hmm. Others?
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, Mr. Jones.
I'll just say this is another one of those times. Just last week, we had what was really a monumental vote, which is going to result in our 911 center expanding and moving to this location. And with tonight's vote, which I'm sure is going to be affirmative, we're taking a giant step into the present and with room for the future as well. So I'm proud of you. I can't imagine the work that's gone into this. I've been aware of the conversation for quite a long time and the need for quite a long time, and proud to have you guys on the team making it happen.
There were a lot of people on this team. I mean, the city manager was absolutely critical to the conversations early on about what this vision could be. Patient while all of the discussions had to occur. Everybody at the city has been incredibly supportive, whether it was the folks like Chris, who are big players, or folks like zoning and utilities and building. We stopped and we went, wait a minute, we don't even know what the numbers are for the tenants. So we had to call the city and say, how do we get addresses? So everybody at the city has been wonderful.
And I just want to add that, I have to again say my staff is, for the IT department, is incredible. They have vision as well as an ability to connect the dots and make things happen. So they tolerate me probably, which is a lot of it too. But I think that as a team, they're a group that you can be very proud of, and I am, to continue to move this forward and take things like resiliency and high availability and safety and security extraordinarily seriously. So again, my thanks to them as we do this tonight.
Well, I'm gonna go off of what Mr. Jones was saying here. Sometimes really big things happen Not much fanfare at all. There's definitely no fanfare here tonight. First meeting of the year in 2024. Not exactly a draw for a crowd, but this is a big one. I mean, and I've had a unique position. You know, those of us that serve on the Dubuque Initiatives Board, Mr. Resnick and I, and then city manager. You know, we've had this unique position of watching this come together. And Dave, I got to tell you, you are a master at putting really complicated puzzles together. This is a complicated puzzle, and you did a great job of pulling this all together with all these different players that are here. But Chris, you and your staff, and Mike, I'm coming to you next, but you and your staff, Chris, you've been saying this for a long time. I mean, yes, we have heard about the funeral parlor joke. You keep making the same joke, but you mean it. You mean that joke. And it's really that, we have to have something that is going to provide the service that the residents of Dubuque need. Ms. Farber has been a champion of this, I know, at this table, and talking about the, not only redundancy, but security and all the different things that come along with it. And sometimes those pieces really do just fall into place. And you've been asking for something for a pretty long time, and it's hard to get much more perfect than this particular situation, considering what your needs are and what the needs of this community are. And Mike, I'm going to echo what Dave said. I mean, you've been, as far as being able to put these things together and be able to have the discussions that need to happen with this and the 911 center and the partnerships with everybody else in this condo arrangement. I don't know of any other communities that are pulling it off in this way. I mean, this is a pretty special arrangement that we've come up with here, and it's just an excellent job done. I mean, this is excellent work, and I'm really, really excited to see these things finally taking off. To know that it's this year, 2024, in April and July, hopefully, fingers crossed, that we're going to be making these moves. This is fantastic, because the pictures that you have on this screen here, the last screen that you showed, they really do remind us of the need for this type of resiliency. We're living in a world that requires this type of security and also requires this amount of data that is just flowing around doing all the things we need it to do. So I can't say enough about how excited I am to vote for this tonight, because this is a really big one. This is great. So this is really exciting for us. All right. Well, with that, let's go ahead and vote on it. We have a motion by Mr. Jones, second by Mr. Resnick, and to receive and file and adopt the resolution. So, Adrian, would you call the roll, please?
Jones.
Aye.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Farber.
Aye.
Wethel.
Aye.
Roussel.
Aye.
Sprank.
Aye.
Resnick.
Aye.
That motion passes 7-0.
Action item number 4 is request for proposals, automated speed enforcement.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Jones.
I move to receive and file and adopt. Approve.
Second by Sprank.
Got a motion by Jones and a second by Sprank. Mike, please.
City Manager Mike Van Milligan. Chief of Police Jeremy Jensen is recommending City Council approval to release the attached request for proposal, which outlines the services the city will require from a vendor to accommodate and facilitate the new City of Dubuque ordinance for automated speed enforcement. I concur with the recommendation and respectfully request Mayor and City Council approval.
Thank you, Mike. Chief, did you have any specific presentation, or are you just available for questions? Okay, great. Bring it back to the table then for any discussion. Ms. Roussel.
Thank you. In reading through the request for proposal, I think it's really thorough, and it should help lead us to some good policy, a good policy document. And there were a couple items that stood out to me, and Chief, if I'm incorrect on any of these, please let me know. But I think accuracy, we're asking the vendor to be accurate within plus one mile, plus or minus. We're asking for good and timely reporting insights so we can see if this technology is leading us to driving the behavior changes that we want to see. I like that it's an initial 1-year contract. It's not a long-term commitment, so we have time to look at it. And that we have the ability to cancel if we find that something's not, that we want to make a change, that then if something is needed to be removed, it's at their expense. I like that there were legal protections in there for the city related to that vendor's product. Detailed information on retention and protections for the public on data storage. So just overall, I think that this request should lead us to a really good a partnership with a vendor and ability to see how this is going to work in our community and help us to make good decisions in the future as well. Chief, was there anything that I misspoke there or anything that you'd like to highlight?
No, Jeremy Jensen, Chief of Police. So I want to remind everybody, this is just a request for proposal for the vendor. We still have the policy, which is going to come back to you all for approval as part of an action item at a future date. So this is the next step to start to see who we can bring to the table. Our ordinance will be part of this proposal also when it goes out, because our ordinance is very specific. It has some specific things that no one else has, and we want to make sure that is covered by the vendor and they understand that too.
Thank you.
Ms. Farber.
Yeah, I just have one question. Remember we had talked about a marketing campaign when we initially had the conversation moving forward. And I was just wondering, is this vendor contract, is there a potential for them to participate in helping fund some of that marketing? Is that something they would normally do? Is it something we could negotiate?
Anything's negotiable. We'll start with that. But I think I have not seen a contract that's had that as marketing as part of that. Obviously, that's very important to us as part of that. And so, but it's definitely something we can discuss and bring up with them.
Yeah, it's food for thought. I mean, if you can get even just a percent, it might help. And also get their involvement to make sure that they're fulfilling the marketing obligation as well. So, thank you.
Mr. Resnick.
Thank you very much. So are we voting on the RFP as presented? I guess that's my question. The RFP that we received, just for the cursory examination, revealed many errors in it. And so I'm just wondering, are we actually voting on the RFP that we received as part of our packet?
I guess I would suggest that if you have changes that you would like to make, that you can suggest those changes, and we could vote on those particular changes. Yeah, Mike?
And Krenna can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what you're voting on is the issuance of an RFP, and this is the general content of the RFP, but we've also noticed some word changes that we would have to make before we issue it. I wouldn't call any of it, no, it's not substantive changes, but yeah, we would refresh it before we send it out.
I agree.
I guess, so what, we're just voting on sometime, we're going to send some kind of RFP out? Is that what you're saying?
No, we're going to issue it almost immediately.
But I'm just saying, the content is not important as, I mean, it's not specifically, this is not what we're voting on tonight?
So if you have a substantive change, I would take the mayor's suggestion and make it. But if it's just a grammatical error or some other word change, it's not substantive, those are, we have identified a couple of those and we're going to make them.
Yes, and so, so what is the process for creating an RFP, I guess? After all these years on the council, I thought we were voting on something that is going to move from this, and then any changes, you can call them substantive changes, but sometimes little things kind of point to maybe there's some big things in there that maybe ought to be in there or maybe not ought to be in there. So what's the process? Is it just one person creating this RFP?
No, you want to go through the process you went through, Jeremy?
Attorney Brumwell and I went through the RFP. We used, again, a template best practice using somebody else's template to look at that and to see what's out there. Again, we don't know what we're getting into, so we wanted to look at what other people have put out there for that.
So this is just a template, and it's a generic RFP for speed enforcement cameras.
I wouldn't call it generic necessarily. It is pretty extensive, and you look at that. But there's, I think, one point I'd like to point out with that is that even with the RFP, they still have to follow our ordinance, no matter what we put out there. So.
Sure, and well, I appreciate this, but I guess that changes everything I thought we did up here, which approve a certain RFP. And we're not approving, I suppose, an RFP. Yes, as you mentioned, there are several, but Chief, you said that the policy has not been approved yet, but it just seems to me that there's some kind of policy statement already included in the RFP. And I guess on page 8, when it says the vendor must destroy all images within 60 days, Is that the correct number we were talking about?
We talked about 30, but that's the images. So our ordinance is 30. And our ordinance has, but the other part we have is if somebody contests a violation. So this is where things, if they contest, we have to keep evidence of that until it clears the judicial system within that. 30 days is just the data, to get rid of the data. It's gone. If there's no violation, no anything issued with that, then or if somebody gets a citation and they don't contest it, then we still get rid of that in the end.
I see. So the data is different than the images. Images are not data.
No, images are data.
Okay, well, I'm sure that can be changed if it needs to be changed, because we're going to change things, and we're voting on the idea that an RFP will be submitted, and it's going to be tweaked before that, because I'm looking at 5 different mistakes, but I wouldn't call them substantive either. Like you say, they are because of this is a template used in another community in Iowa.
Well, I'd encourage you to share with us now the 5 you've identified to make sure we don't miss them.
Okay, well, on page 3, it says District Court of Marshall County. On page 5, it says fulfill the requirements of the city of Marshalltown. On page 7, it says the vendor must provide an electronic file containing the data. I don't know what that means. On page 13, it says City of Marshalltown. On page 14, it says Marshalltown County District Court. Those are the ones that and this is just a cursory examination. There may be others. A question, because we haven't established where the locations are. And you're quoted, Chief, as saying, I don't know where I got this from, a news report, data-driven criteria will guide the location selections. That's not part of this RFP, so maybe I can talk about that later.
Yeah, that's the policy. That's the policy we're developing, is where things go. The ordinance also, when we created the ordinance, also requires us to use the data as part of that to develop the locations. Again, we don't know, again, without a vendor, we don't know, can we put one at this location? We don't know until we have a vendor to say, this is the equipment can go here or not here. That tweaks that. So to put that in an RFP and say specifically this is where it's going to go, can't do that because some of it requires state approval to put things on state highways. And so we have to get the vendor in place and then start working the data. Again, that's the policy side of this. When we start placing things, you will all say yay or nay on that. So
great. Well, thank you, and I will bring up those questions when that's on the agenda. And to me, little mistakes sometimes are indicative of larger mistakes. So that's I'm just alerted to this.
I will say I changed Marshalltown out of there probably 500 times out of there. So to miss it 5 times, I don't want to miss any, but that was one of the areas that I went through and had to change a whole bunch.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mm-hmm. Others? So, a couple of things. First of all, thank you for your work on this, Chief. I think this is I do think it's good work, and I think having read through this, first of all, I don't think it's a bad thing to use templates from other communities if the template works for our community. And I understand that you have to make changes, like you said, to be able to do that and make it more fit what we have. In reading through this, I do see that it's going to be related to what we have in our ordinance, that it's specific to Dubuque in that. And I think that what we have in here is very in line with what we've discussed and what we voted on as an ordinance. And I totally understand that you are going to bring another policy to us. That's where we really get to haggle some more on what the actual policy is going to be and be able to have more discussion that's in depth.
That's the details of how we actually implement it.
Yeah. Let me ask, are these pretty standard for the most part? I mean, as you've looked at them, you've looked at other communities and what they had for agreements with other camera operators. I'm thinking back to Ms. Farber's earlier question about negotiating something like marketing in that. Are there kind of standard arrangements with these companies? This is a new thing for Dubuque, so unfamiliar.
I don't necessarily think there's a standard because there's no real law that governs it. Mm-hmm. So you don't have a standard. So Attorney Brumwell, when she researched a bunch of the ordinances, And honestly, the one that we found was probably the most, or not the ordinance, the RFP was the most comprehensive RFP that we found that could cover, again, we're trying to cover all the details as best we can without locking us so much into a back corner that we can't get a vendor out of this. Again, everyone has a nuance to it. If you look, most of these, if you go through it, most of them are red light and speed cameras. Mm-hmm. That's how most of them are doing that. And so we have to modify that to us. You look at, again, I think there's some nuances that go out with depending on the vendor. Mm-hmm. And because as we can see through some of this, some of it is based on the vendor. There's no cost to us per se for the equipment and the because they're taking their percentage off of the citations issued. Then there's other ones where it leases the equipment and you pay them back and that kind of stuff. So it's, to answer your question kind of long-winded, there's really not a standardized.
Gotcha. Karen, I see you.
I was just going to add that hold a number of different contracts, and they are different. Some include the red lights, some include speed, some are both. I went so far back as to look at the contract we reviewed the first time this came before council over a decade ago. I don't remember exactly when that was. So there were many, many different models or variations depending on where it happened. And so what we pulled from was what I thought was the most robust and up to date based on where we are.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. So to Mr. Resnick's point, I think he actually brings up a decent point in that what we vote on needs to be pretty clear. And we're, based on the agenda, we are voting on the approval of releasing the attached request for proposal. So I do think it would be helpful and appropriate if we were to say with and thank you, Mr. Resnick, for pointing out the things that need to be corrected. If Mr. Jones, you made the original motion, if you'd be willing to potentially just mention in there something about, with the added changes as suggested, if that's something you'd consider, I'd just kick it back to you to discuss that. Because I do think it's important that if we're gonna vote on something, it should be what we're voting on. I do still think that staff should have the ability to go back and proofread one or two more times before you go send out the RFP. I just think that's best practice. But mistakes can be made. I think that happens when you're putting something like this together. So, Mr. Jones, your thoughts? I'm just kind of throwing it out there.
Yeah, excuse me, I'm completely amenable to that change. It makes sense. I will make the comment, I kind of like the idea of asking the vendor to participate in the marketing, but you're going to pay for that. If you ask a vendor for a longer warranty, they'll say, sure, we'll give you a longer warranty, and they'll also give you a higher bid or demand a higher percentage. So it has to be carefully discussed. And you're right, maybe not.
Really quickly, that to me is a pretty substantive change to an RFP. And that's not in the RFP right now. Right. I don't know if I'm just personally, respectfully, I'm not suggesting that we throw marketing costs into this particular RFP. I was talking more about the less substantive changes, but the ones that do misidentify Dubuque and things like that. So I just want to be clear on that. I think the idea that you brought up, Ms. Farber, is an interesting one, but I do think it changes the nature of an RFP enough that could put us pigeonhole us a little bit too far, I think.
No, I agree. I just thought it was interesting, and maybe it's a future conversation with the vendor once we have acquired a vendor, kind of thing.
Sure. Thank you.
You bet.
Well, Mr. Mayor, let me modify my motion to receive and file and approve the RFP with the changes discussed. And any further typo edits needed.
Okay. Mr. Spranky?
I'll second that.
Okay. Everybody clear then on what we're voting on? Any other questions or further clarification for discussion? Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much, Chief. I think we have what we need from you. Thank you for your work on this, and you as well, Krana, and everybody else worked on it. So we have the motion with amendments in a second. Adrian, would you call the roll, please?
Jones.
Aye.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Farber. Aye. Wethel.
Aye.
Roussel.
Aye.
Sprank.
Aye.
Resnick.
That motion passes 6-1.
Next are council member reports.
Let me just say Happy New Year first, because I haven't even said that yet this meeting. So I just want to wish everybody a Happy New Year, everybody here and everybody out in the community. 2024, that does not roll off the tongue easily. That's not a year I saw coming, so 2024. Mr. Resnick, go ahead.
Well, thank you. And this is something like what you've been talking about. It's really helped us this year, the people who were just took their oath tonight. I'm glad that you allow the family inclusion in this. It's very appropriate. Everybody up here knows how important it is to have your family support. And it's absolutely crucial that they support what we're doing, and they're cheering for us. They are worried about us. They struggle with us sometimes when we talk about certain city issues. But they're fiercely, probably all of our families are fiercely supportive of Dubuque, Iowa. And so I just wanted to, I think that's a great tradition that we're doing. It really meant a lot to me. My fifth swearing in, and first time I had some family members with me, and it felt really great. Thank you.
And welcome back to you and everyone else we welcome back tonight. Other reports?
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, Mr. Jones.
Sue and I had the opportunity to fly Dubuque over last weekend. We took a quick jump to Orlando via Avelo Airlines, and it was a really positive experience. Probably about as nice a flight as I've been on. They're flying fairly new aircraft. They're clean. They're nice leather seats. We were in an exit row, so we had a lot of leg room, but the people that weren't in exit rows had reasonable amount of leg room. Just an overall fun experience. The crew was fun. The gate crew was fun in Dubuque and in Orlando. And every Avelo employee we encountered was just great. So we've got quite an asset there. Did talk to some of the flight crew, and they said that the flights that they've been on to Dubuque, which is most of them, have been full or nearly full. Ours was full, but for about 6 seats each direction. And so we did well getting them. We'll do better when we've got a legacy carrier back someday. I'm not sure when that is. I know that Avelo's presence in Dubuque and the flights coming in and out of here helped to make that possible. And it's important that the community understand that. I've had some recent communications from citizens saying, well, you shouldn't spend any more money on them. That's not helping anybody. I'll tell you, it's helping keep the lights on at a very important airport. It's helping to train pilots at the University of Dubuque to have that airport in the shape that it's in. And it's good for our community. And somehow we're filling up airplanes going back and forth to Orlando. They also had the impression that it was all Dubuquers going one way or the other. Travel Dubuque's working hard to change that, to balance that load a little bit. And we'll hear more about that later.
Well, thank you, Mr. Jones. All right. Any others? More to come then in 2024. All right. Well, I can finally just say, instead of that we have to go to a closed session, that we have no further business, so we stand adjourned. Good night, everybody.